Okay, so we're back. Week 1 discussion. We're going to be talking about raster art versus vector art. And this discussion post is very similar to a discussion that you did in DES 104. So when we think about raster art, that is what you did in DES 104, what you did in Photoshop, right? Everything is pixels. Well, vector art is a mathematical algorithm, which when you say that out loud makes absolutely no sense. I know it. You know it. We can tell that, we can say that till we're blue in the face, but sometimes we need an analogy, right, to explain what vector artwork is. And the thing about vector artwork is it just is able to scale as big as you need it to be, and it never gets pixelized because there aren't any pixels. So think of a spool of fishing wire, okay? And imagine that spool of fishing wire is unlimited, okay? And the fishing wire is the lines in Illustrator. I'm just gonna make a new document just so you can kind of see what I mean. And so here's our fishing rod, let's say, right here. Whoops, wrong button. Right here. Here's our fishing rod. And inside of this fishing rod, we have the fishing wire that's going to come out. And we just keep on being able to expand this, expand to infinity and beyond without ever losing any resolution. It's just this never-ending wire that just keeps coming out. That's what vectors are in a way. They're just never-ending wire. So when you're looking at it like this, you can see the lines, right? Let me zoom in a little. And you can see the points. If I can select it. These are the points. And they can just expand as much as you need them to be, to expand. Here's another point, and it can expand as much as you need it to. Right here, you can see the point. Here are the points. Those are the lines that just keep going and going and going and going without any pixels to them. And when we turn it back on, we can color it in with a color. And we can change the color of everything, and it might look like a picture when we're done, but ultimately, it's just lines. There's no shading to it. There's no imagery to it. It's just lines that come together to make a picture. So, with that being said, let's take a look and go over the background and the prompt for our discussion this week. Vector artwork, in a nutshell, is a type of graphic that uses mathematical algorithms. Those lines are the mathematical algorithms. And it allows the image to be scaled or modified without any loss of image quality or resolution. Vector graphics are often referred to as resolution independent, as they take on the resolution of the output device that they are being printed on. So an output device might be your printer. An output device can even be your screen, or it can be some sort of a large format printer that prints something for the size of a billboard. So for example, a vector graphic will print clearly whether it's the size of a business card or a billboard, whereas a raster graphic, those are your pictures, like a picture you take with your phone, sized for a business card and then enlarged to a billboard size, would start to pixelate. And here's that pixelization right there. Vector graphics are the native file format for Adobe Illustrator, and they often have a file extension that includes .ai, .pdf, .eps, and .svg. On the other hand, we have raster graphics. So you worked with those in DES 104. Raster graphics are resolution dependent, which means that they are created from pixels. Each pixel is a particular size and color, and the combined pixels create an image. Photographs are raster graphics, as are illustrations created in Photoshop. So you can have an illustration that you created in Adobe Photoshop, and it might be an illustration, but ultimately, because you created it in a pixel-based program, it's now pixels. It's not vector. So taking a raster image down in size, that works just fine, because you can always take pixels out of something. You can't put pixels in. But bringing it up in size doesn't work at all, because the edges will start to get jagged because the actual pixels are being blown up, and we can now see them with the naked eye. Creating a pixel-based artwork is a little bit more intuitive, since brushes work a lot like handheld brushes. Though a little bit more complex to learn, vector artwork is very worth the time and effort. So logos must be created as vector artwork, because a company is always going to use its logo in a gazillion different sizes and formats, right? So they might need a logo the size of a postage stamp, or they might need to put their logo on a billboard. So the logo needs to be clear and recognizable no matter where it is that they are using it. That's extremely important. So besides converting from vector to raster, easy to do. Converting from raster to vector, it can be done, but it's definitely going to take some effort. So whenever you can start in vector for a project, that really is a good idea. Now, this is where people start to say, well, shouldn't I just make my picture vector? No. You know, a photograph can't be vector. I mean, it can, but it's ultimately going to be an illustration when it's done, right? And some people very good at doing illustrations in you know in Illustrator, quite frankly. um Other people are not. Now, let me share with you really quick, because this will be a good way to show this. um my husband is really good at doing illustrations. So this was drawn in Adobe Illustrator. Yes, it looks like a photograph of a car, but this is all completely vector, and he did it in Adobe Illustrator. Also, this was originally, you know, the daughter of the person who owned this business, and he created a vector illustration of her. This motorcycle is done in Illustrator. So you can take your pictures and bring them into Illustrator and redraw them. It takes a lot of effort to do, but it's not that it can't be done. All right, so let's look at our prompt for this week. So for this discussion, you need to read through the scenario of land hose boating design that and then you need to discuss the problems and give possible solutions presented below based on what you've learned about the differences between raster and vector artwork. So let's look at the scenarios. Designer A specializes in website design, and part of their contract is to also design the logo for the website. And the designer created a terrific logo for Land Ho Boating's website. It has several gradients and a few drop shadows too, so it really leaps off the page. Well, designer B works in a sign shop and has been asked to create the signage for their marina, and their logo will be prominently placed. So Land Ho Boating gives designer B that logo that designer A created for the website. Here's our scenario. Designer A created the logo in Photoshop. Cue my Home Alone shocked face. How is this going to affect designer B's needs? And what would designer B need to do to be able to use that logo effectively? How do you come up with the solution for this? So this is the first scenario. Scenario 2, designer A created the logo in Illustrator, but keep in mind, it has drop shadows. How is this going to affect designer B's needs? That really rhymes. Would designer B need to be able to, what would designer B need to be able to do to use the logo effectively? How did you come to that solution? And then conclusion. Discuss the similarities and the differences of the two problems, and then after you identify the differences between the scalability and the pixel-based art, what suggestion do you have for designer A or designer B to make sure that both can easily use the logo? So for your citation, you might use articles that show examples of how Illustrator deals with raster effects or how Photoshop deals with vector artwork. You can also find articles from experts that suggest how to deal with original artwork sizes when creating something that involves both vector art and raster-like effects. Your initial and reply post should work to develop a group understanding of this topic. Now, you need to answer both of the scenarios and answer the conclusion. So these are your 3 questions that you need to answer in this discussion post for this week. For your initial post, make sure that you are doing some research in order to answer these and that you are citing that source. Also, make sure that you're replying to two of your fellow students, to their posts, and you're posting on 2 different days. All right, I'm just going to stop this recording again, and we'll start it up, and we'll get into Illustrator, and we'll talk about our assignment for this week. So for those of you who are either watching or rewatching at home, please go on to the next video.